Two new rumors today about Walker Kessler and Darren Peterson. Let's talk about it. It's the Hoopner Show. All right, guys, like always, like the video, subscribe to the channel. Let's just get into this. So, if you weren't able to listen today on ESPN 700, Spence Checkets, Tim McMahon was on there and had two interesting bits of information for Jazz fans. The first had to do with Walker Kessler. So, I believe it was my last video. We talked about a rumor from Tim Bontemps, who said that the Jazz offer with Walker Kessler looks likely at somewhere in the $25 to $30 million range, which is a lot. Tim McMahon, who's actually with Tim Bontemps on the Hoop Collective podcast, came and probably clarified a little bit about the situation, or at least provided different insight or point of view. I'm not sure. Take it for what you will. But he went on there and said basically that the Walker Kessler situation hasn't changed since this summer, when the Jazz and Walker Kessler were not able to come to an agreement on a contract. The amount that Tim Bontemps said, the 25 to 30 million, sounds like that's what the Jazz hope or expect it to end up landing on. But according to Tim Bontemps, the situation hasn't improved, and Walker Kessler's group believes that they can go out and get more. Now, it's going to take another team offering him that, and he talked about how that may be difficult, and he doesn't know if there's a team that's willing to do that. There may be. You know, the Lakers, if LeBron James goes to Cleveland or something like that, they will have a lot of cap space, and they may want to offer a huge offer like that to Walker Kessler. So there is some danger there for the Jazz. If a team out there gives Walker Kessler $40 million, that's going to be tough. Now, he did mention also that there is some element of the capflation, or whatever you want to call it. With the new salary cap, contracts are going to get a little bit bigger. So you see, so the $25 million, if that's what Walker Kessler gets, which honestly sounds like a lot, is actually less now than it was 10 years ago. And now, inflation in general is terrible. Things are bad right now. But in the NBA, you'll see these bigger numbers, and it has to do with just the cap, because it's a percentage of the cap. So $25 million under the former CBA is different than $25 million now, because if you have a larger amount you can spend, then it's like smaller pieces of the pie. Obviously, Walker Kessler and his representation are going to try to get the most they can for their client. That's just what they're going to do. But it sounds like for them to do that, they're going to have to go to another team to get an offer. And so what is probably going to happen, based off of what we're seeing, is that Utah is going to let Walker Kessler go out and find an offer. Probably an okay idea with Kessler, because, it's not the same as if you have AJ DeBonsa or Darren Peterson or one of your elite stars going into free agency. You are going to lock those players up. Walker Kessler is a very good starting caliber center that can be a big part of a very good team. He is not the cornerstone of everything you're doing. And so I think, some Jazz fans like me who've been around the block remember when Gordon Hayward went and got his contract with the Charlotte Hornets in restricted free agency, and Utah had to match that. It honestly backfired on the Jazz, not necessarily because it was a big number. It was because he got a contract that actually gave him one less year. If I remember correctly, and I could be wrong, but I believe it was 3 years with a player option, instead of had the Jazz just given him a 4-year contract, which would have had Gordon Hayward on the floor with Donovan Mitchell. This is a little bit different situation in that it's a center instead of a wing, but you can see how there can be some danger there. If you let Walker Kessler go to another team, yes, the Jazz can match. That's the thing. It's restricted free agency. Utah can match any offer. So if some team offers him $40 million, Utah can match it. It's going to be a tough pill to swallow, but they could if that's what they want to do. But there are other elements that make it bad as well, because that other team then dictates the terms of the contract, not you. And that was one of the problems with Gordon Hayward. The Jazz didn't get to decide the terms of the contract because they let Gordon Hayward go. They should have signed him. This one, I kind of agree you can let him go, but then there's some risk there, and it may mean that Utah is pretty confident that there's not going to be a bigger offer out there. And I somewhat agree because, teams know that Utah can match the offer. And if they've been hearing all these rumors, and by the way, Utah may be leaking that just to get that word out to these other teams that they're going to match. But if they know that Utah's going to match, there's certain things that Utah can do that can punish them, right? They can wait to match it after 10 days. And if you put another team in free agency behind the wall for 10 days, then that can be tough for them because then they miss out on making other contract signings. At least that's rules that were in the past. I don't know if that's a rule now, but there's things Utah can do to punish other teams. But that said, even if they're not able to do something like that, other teams know that the Jazz can still sign them. So they're doing something just to kind of hurt the Jazz, which may not be in their best interest if, let's say, they want to make a trade with the Jazz. Or maybe they just want to get Walker Kessler at $25 million, and they know that Kessler will go with them. They may be willing to do some sort of sign and trade with the Jazz, right? That is a possibility in this situation. Let's say Walker Kessler says to the Jazz, I'm frustrated that we didn't get this done. I wanted to get a contract earlier. I would like a sign and trade to somewhere else. Utah might be willing to do that because let's say, Indiana we know is interested in Kessler, although they probably won't now that they have Zubats and they gave up their pick basically for Zubats. But just as Indiana, for example, let's say the Jazz wanted like Jarris Walker, who also needs a contract, and let's say the Pacers didn't want to pay him, Utah could do something like that. Now, Pacers aren't a very good example. There's other teams out there that might have a player that might be interested in going to Utah. Who knows? But that's the situation with that. The next, Darren Peterson news. Tim Bontemps on that show gave some really interesting insights, something probably bigger than we realize. But he says that the Jazz have done their due diligence on Darren Peterson and they would be completely comfortable with him as a part of their franchise. And he said that there's nothing that would prevent the Jazz from drafting Darren Peterson. So I know that there's other podcasts out there that talked about the potential of Utah maybe getting Cam Boozer if the medicals were bad. It certainly looks like the Jazz are fine with the medicals. So if the Washington Wizards sign AJ DeBonsa or draft AJ DeBonsa number 1, it certainly looks like Darren Peterson is going to Utah and number 2. And I know there's a lot of Jazz fans and a lot of draft experts out there that think that Darren Peterson is the best player in this draft. Now, the reason that the Wizards might want DeBonsa is it's the name. He's also the size. He's the prototype wing that can lead you deep into the playoffs, if not to a championship. But in every situation that Darren Peterson has faced off against DeBonsa, Peterson has gotten the edge. And I do think there's some things with Darren Peterson that have been overblown. I think that, people have taken some of the injury stuff and the asking to be removed from a game. They've kind of equated those things to him maybe not having a competitive edge or something like that. And I think one of the biggest signs of the competitive nature that Darren Peterson has is that every time he's faced off against DeBonsa, he has won those matchups. He has wanted to win those matchups, and he's going to continue to do it in the NBA. I personally cannot wait till Utah plays Washington in this upcoming season because either way, depending on who drafts who, it's going to be AJ DeBonsa versus Darren Peterson, and it's going to be a lot of fun. All right, guys. That's the latest news and rumors. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. I will talk to you next time.